I grew up the son of an army officer. My father was British Army. When I was at school, I really enjoyed my sport. I suppose I was a typical boy growing up in the environment that I was in. When I was in London, I worked in the commercial property market in Mayfair St James's, which is sort of central West End. And I was in the Reserve Army for a while. I played rugby.
We were both at university, and he was at an army bash, and all dressed up in uniform and irresistible. So went from there. It was all good fun.
I was up a ladder outside, emptying the leaves out of the guttering, and I was resting against the guttering here. And I caught my chest on the guttering, and I thought, there's a bit of a lump there. And I thought, actually, I remember that lump from a few months ago, but I'd had a scar from about 30 years ago where I'd had a boil lanced on the side of my chest, or just next to my nipple. And I'd assumed it was the scar tissue, which had just grown a bit. And so I didn't do anything for a couple of months.
And I thought, oh gosh, hypochondriac, men, middle age, here we go, everything hurts. And we didn't think much of it. And then later that evening, after he had a shower, he asked me to have a look at it. And I did, and it felt like a really hard, small pebble. So I thought, gosh, that's a bit unusual. But I hadn't heard really of male breast cancer. It just hadn't even crossed my mind. I thought, gosh, well, maybe he should go and have it looked at.
Within a week of seeing the GP, I was being told I had a carcinoma. So when I was told that I had what essentially is breast cancer, it was, for me, that was pretty hard to really understand. Obviously didn't tell the children till I actually went into hospital. But I remember reading to my son Thomas that night, who's my youngest, reading him a book, and him sort of lying on my shoulder, sort of having the book read to him. You sort of think, well, will I be doing this in 6 months' time? So it comes as a bit of a shock.
I was doing butterfly and backstroke.
My daughter, the first thing she said is it cancer, and are you going to die? So when you have your daughter asking you, are you going to die? I had to sort of say, well, of course we're all going to die, and you deal with it that way. I had a mastectomy, a male mastectomy, with the equivalent volume of body matter that was removed, probably about the equivalent size of a paperback book. So approximately that sort of size, about 2 centimeters deep, just taken off.
I remember very clearly the day that Mark made contact and was feeling quite irate about the fact that NBCF didn't pay enough attention to getting the message out about men with breast cancer. So I invited him to come in and see me, and tall, nice-looking, very sort of immaculately dressed fellow walked into the office, and as I invited him into the meeting room, he kind of put down his briefcase and proceeded to strip off his shirt. And I think what he really wanted to do was to just convince me that, the whole experience had been so real for him, and that was a good way to do it. But of course, I was sitting there thinking, my goodness, what are the staff going to think is going on?
I had a couple of friends, and only good friends can say these sort of things to you, which is like, yeah, always thought you looked all right, we fancied a bit of a grope, or thought you should have been wearing a bra, or those sort of things. If I'm in a backyard pool at a friend's house and I see kids noticing it, my normal retort is I will sort of wink and say I've been bitten by a shark.
I was horrified, but they loved it, and I think the story of the shark attack works well.
The subsequent rollout report that I had was probably from a week from diagnosis on the Friday to the rollout report was approximately 13 days. Now on the way down to the Stratfield clinic, I was feeling very anxious. I had about 15 minutes to go, and I turned on the radio, and they put on this song by the New Radicals, which is called "Give What You Get," but the catch line is "Don't give up, you've got a reason to live." Fortunately for me, I was lucky to be told that I was cured, whereas a lot of people, it's obviously they've got to go through chemotherapy. Total elation, went upstairs, thanked all the nurses, got back in the car, turned on the radio. The first song that came out on the radio was Bee Gees' "Staying Alive." For me, a raw nerve was touched probably when Angelina Jolie was in the press. And there were quite a number of times over a couple of days where I kept hearing female breast cancer, female breast cancer, female breast cancer. Every time it was mentioned in the press or the media, it was designated with a gender, female. And I thought to myself, how many other cancers have a gender associated with them? They don't. For every 20 million of population, there's about 100 men a year. And I sort of did a little calculation in my head about how many men get injured, in Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever. And if thousands of men were being injured every year, it would certainly be in the press. And that's basically what's happening. There's about a 1 in 750 chance that a man will get breast cancer in his life. So I acknowledge that it only accounts for about 1% of all breast cancers. But 1% of all breast cancers is still a lot of lives. So that's what I'm trying to achieve.
Men, check yourselves, but women, check your men. And if you feel something solid like a little pebble, don't dismiss it. Get them to go to the doctor and get it checked. And maybe it'll save lives, because if you get it early, you'll be okay.
Come on, feed it. Come on. Referee, didn't you see that? Oh, he's got the ball,